I just grabbed this because I want to measure a plant growing over here. It's a cosmos plant and it's massive. Standing beside it here, I would say I'm about half its size, but let's check. I was a little bit off with that because it's 2.35 meters, which is about 8 foot tall, maybe a little bit more. So I'm off there with my comparison, you know, my height compared to this cosmos, but still it's pretty tall because cosmos plants only usually reach about 1.5 meters in height. But this self-seeded one just didn't want to be average, did it? Now with that plant, I just allowed it to grow and do its own thing. So it pretty much just went straight up, and then as you saw there's a bunch of flowers on top. However, with cosmos plants, there is a little tip I can share that will encourage it to grow out more bushy, producing more flowers rather than the plants just continuing up straight with one stem. When my cosmos plants are about 30 centimeters in height, with some of them what I do is I just snip off the top. And what that does is it stimulates the plant to encourage growth of side shoots. These side shoots turn into a decent length stems with flowers on top that you can harvest for garden posies and bouquets. You can apply this technique to many other cut flowers as well as edible plants. For example, here I'm just by a patch of Lilliput white zinnias, and you can do it with these plants. You can also do it to dahlias. Like over here I have an example with this dahlia plant. Here's where I must have cut off one of the main shoots at some stage, and then what you can see down here is these side shoots have grown, and that's where I just showed you that dahlia flower growing on this stem. You can also apply this technique to edible plants such as peppers, lots of different types of herbs. Actually, I think I've got some basil where I can show you an example of it. If we take a look down here, say on this stem, at one stage I must have harvested some basil from here, and then you have these two side shoots popping up, and then all you need to do is continue the process. So instead of harvesting this entire shoot, what I'll do is I will just come in and snip off the top. It's a bit woody at the moment because it's near the end of season, so I've just removed that part there, and hopefully if the weather still holds up and we don't get any frost, these two leaves there will grow out even further, creating another side shoot. I'm over with the tray of sweet peas where I made a seed sowing mistake, and really I should have known better. But first I want to show you something over here. Remember last week I said to you that you shouldn't rely on the seed packet as a label? Well, it's only been a week since I said that, and look at it. It's already worn off. There's no way you'd be able to tell what variety I've got in here if I hadn't put in this proper label. Okay, back to my mistake that I made. It's a very simple one. It's a case of not sowing the seeds at the correct depth. What happened here is the seed germinated and it almost pushed up slightly through the soil, and now it's completely exposed. And you know who loves these kind of seeds? Rodents, especially mice. So it's almost like an invitation to a delicious snacky meal. Next time what I need to do, or I could probably even do it now, is just put some extra soil on top. I don't want to push it down because I don't want to damage any roots underneath, but really I should have known better. I might even get the chickens coming over trying to eat them. What do you reckon, girls? They've been up on the back porch trying to stay out of all this rain, but it's eased off a little bit now, so not too bad for them to be hanging out here. I ended up purchasing another packet of sweet peas. Sorry, I feel like there's something on my leg. Hold on a sec. Oh, it was just this. That's all right. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was some insect or something crawling up me. Back to the peas. So you may remember a couple of weeks ago I mentioned, or maybe it was last week, that I lost a packet of sweet pea seeds, a blue variety. Well, this is it. Not the original one because I still can't find them, so I had to go and buy a new set. I also picked up a packet of these, which I haven't actually ever seen before. They're daffodils called Hoop Petticoat. Definitely a name that suits this bloom. The bulbs are really tiny compared to, you know, standard daffodils, but I guess that would make sense because these are a miniature variety. They weren't cheap either, but that's all right because I think daffodils are a good investment. The reason for this is because they actually multiply every year. So although I think I've only got 6 bulbs in here, over the years I'll have many more. Not sure where I'm going to plant them yet. Probably a pot to start off with, and maybe over a couple of years I'll transplant them somewhere in the garden. Those daffodils and the sweet pea seeds weren't the only garden items that I splashed my money on this week. I got 2 cubic meters of mushroom compost delivered, and it was pretty expensive, especially the delivery fee. But I guess that's the same thing that's happening all around the world, the cost of living. But there does get a point where you think, is it even worth me purchasing that compost? Because will I ever make that money back with the savings from the food that I'm growing here? I don't know if I will. But then on the other hand, at least homegrown food, you know what's going into it, you know it's safe to eat, there's no pesticides, as opposed to fruit and veg that you might buy in the supermarket where you're not quite sure what has gone into producing it. And then some of you might be thinking, oh, but you can just buy organic fruit and veg. Well, the price of organic fruit and veg here is astronomical. There's no way I could afford to buy that for my family of 5. Really what I need to do is up my composting game, which I've said many times before. There's definitely lots of potential here in this garden to make way more than I do, so that I won't have to rely on buying bulk mushroom compost anymore in the future. I've got a few more seeds germinating, like Queen Anne's lace. There's a white corn cockle, and then the Statice heavenly blue. I don't believe there was any of those little sprouts last week. A couple of days ago I purchased all of these chilies, which were packed into a bag. They cost me $5, which I thought was an absolute bargain. They're labelled Thai chilies, and I was thinking at the time, you know what, I'm going to buy these and preserve them. It took me a while to decide how exactly I'm going to preserve them, but I have made the final decision that what I'm going to do is dehydrate the whole lot of them. So I've taken out the dehydrator that I purchased last year, spreading the chilies out on each layer, making sure to leave enough room around them to ensure that they dry out correctly. I'll probably have to do this in 2 batches because I didn't fit them all into this load, and I'm setting it at 9 hours at 60 degrees Celsius. You can also sun dry your chilies or dehydrate them in the oven. I'll give you an update next week. A couple of my kids just saw me with the dehydrator and asked if I could dehydrate some oranges, but as you can see, they're not quite ready yet, still very small. Does that one have a hole in it? Oh, I hope that's not a fruit fly hole. Hopefully not. But you know what, even though these ones aren't ready, I can always just go and buy a bunch of oranges from the fruit and veg shop and dehydrate them. Speaking of garden harvests, let me show you a bunch of food that I picked from the garden last weekend. Garden harvest time. Starting off with some Jerusalem artichokes. They're also known as sunchokes. Be warned, these can make you very gassy. This ripe one just fell off, but there's heaps more green chilies here. Next up, some basil. We're near end of season, so it is starting to go to flower. That's all right though, still edible. I'm going to really miss the smell of this. I need a spring onion. I've got more of them, plus lots of other edibles on the grow, and heaps of cut flowers, making use of all the toilet roll holders. Next up, some limes. Just 3 today. Look who I have spotted in this raised bed that's been completely neglected. The girls are having a dust bath. Can you believe how much the soil level drops in raised beds? Oh my goodness. I really need to top most of mine up, but for the moment the 2 girls are really enjoying themselves in here. I'm going to finish off this harvest with a bunch of cut flowers. I'm thinking feverview, zinnias and some argyrodum. This is headed straight for the kitchen table. Food for your body and flowers for your soul. I better head off for now because I've got a massive pile of clothes that need to be washed. Don't know where I'm going to put them all. I won't be able to put them out in the line. It's too wet out here. I do have a clothes horse and I'll just use every chair in the house. Yeah, I don't know why I'm telling you that. It's not really garden related, but it's my life, I guess. Anyway, I hope you have a great week ahead. Happy gardening, and I'll see you again next Friday.